Alrighty, welcome to the NTS podcast, episode 5, with the great Simon Dutton. How's it going?
That's a big intro, man. I'm very honored to be episode 5. Like, you're still in the early stage if you have plenty people to ask. Rather than I think I'm episode 156 coming up this week. So, mate, it's an honor to be on. So, thank you very much.
Awesome, man. I think I just got rejected once when I kind of asked if someone wanted to hop on. Most people have been kind of stoked about it, so that's cool to see. Being able to
It's a numbers game, right? Like, just fire it out. Like, never be intimidated to ask anybody to go on a show, because you'll be amazed. It's the best education you ever get. Because if I said, could I have an hour of your time for a consult? They'd be like, oh, that's £200, please. Could I have you on my podcast? Yeah, no problem. It's the easiest way to get free education ever. Just ask. Some people will leave you unread. Some people will say yes and then just disappear. But eventually you'll get more and more people, and it'll be worth it.
I think I kind of saw that on your page as well when I skimmed through it, like networking with people, just being in this bubble with other great people in the industry, and it'll all benefit everyone in the end. Yeah,
for sure. It's the only way people grow is by being around other people that are also on that same journey, right? Like, it's not. I look at whether it's podcasting or whether it's just the fitness industry in general, right? Like, I'm very much a firm believer that I can learn from anybody. I can learn from the newest client to a PT that's been in the industry 1 year to a mentor that's been in the industry 30 years. Like, the more you can surround yourself with people and just, like, in a way, without sounding airy fairy, be a good person. Like, I think things come around.
Yeah, I mentioned it in the last podcast, I think, as well. Like, I take some good parts from some people and some good parts from the other person, and like I pick and choose what I kind of think makes sense, and then I go from there. There's no reason to, like, Simon's an asshole because he said something about squats that I don't agree with. So just being open-minded about these things.
Absolutely.
For sure. So I wanted to really I haven't really followed you for a long time, man. I don't know if you followed me first or if I checked out your page, because you have really great content, and it's like a blend of business content, biomechanics stuff, coaching stuff. It's the self-made brand.
Self-made university, yeah. So I would never consider myself a business coach. Like, I don't really help coaches with their business, but the thing that I tend to do is help coaches get great results. So I've been in the industry 13 years, and I've worked for some of the world's biggest PT companies, and I've sort of been the guy in the shadows for a very long time. So I started working a lot of hours on the gym floor, getting good results with clients, and then I started mentoring coaches and running education for these gyms. So I ran education for the entirety of London for a big PT company, and the same for the entirety of their Asia branch, and then moved and worked around a few other gyms running education. And that's when I moved back to the UK, midway through this year, I thought, this is time to go full time and take it online. And there is a real gap where, as the industry's growing, and particularly the online industry's growing, we see people coming into the industry thinking that they're going to make a quick buck rather than actually caring about their clients.
Yeah.
And we see people that are putting Canva and trending audio and marketing on higher priority list than actually being good at your job. There is no other industry like this, right? You'd never go to a plumber that's never learned how to fix a sink, but they've got a good graphics on the social media page. So my job is to right that wrong. My job is to make the coach that want to be better stand out and get better results with their clients. And in turn, hopefully that helps their business. But I don't do any lead gen stuff. I don't do any marketing stuff. I don't do any sales stuff. But if I can get somebody a great product, then they can go to a business mentor and it's going to work better. Or they might not need as much business stuff because their product sells itself.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about this somewhere in this podcast, but I guess we can just get into it. Like, because I had a rant about this yesterday. I had a long day. I was stimmed up on caffeine and a little bit of nicotine. And I was just like, there were so many coaches out there who just freaking, like, in my first business coaching, I learned a lot from it, but it was just sales and just spam people. That was it. Like, nothing about, like, giving your clients great results and client retention and recurring revenue or keeping things up for the long term. It was just spam people as much as possible, push them in, like make them cry on the freaking phone or on Zoom, and just have as high prices as you possibly can. Because if you charge more, like, people are going to be more committed, and just even if it's like $10,000 for half a year of coaching or something. And it felt messed up, to be honest. So that's kind of cool to see, like, more people being like, fuck that, I'm gonna be a business, like not a mentor, but like coach people a little bit with their business and just focus on the quality and the coaching aspect of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm solely the coaching aspect, right? Like I have a partnership with an amazing business coach called Ollie Carson, who I come in and help his group of coaches as a sort of contractor and go in and teach them like client result stuff. But my business itself is sort of more it is solely the result stuff. So what I do is I teach exercise mechanics, I teach nutritional science, I teach client setup, I teach client management, I teach how to do check-ins, how to adjust, how to get fat loss results, how to get strength results. And then like I think that's the underpinning of any business, right? Because if you can't prove that you can do what you say you're going to do, then what is a business coach going to teach you? Like that spamming people is going to, the difference between someone that's spammy, I don't think spammy is ever good, by the way, but like if the difference between someone that's spammy and gets away with it and the difference between someone who gets reported on Instagram is, well, if someone can back up their words. If I come into your DMs and go, look, here's 1,000 clients that have gotten amazing results. I see you've mentioned wanting to lose weight. I just wanted to see if this would be interesting to you. You're going to get a better response than someone that just comes on their page with no results. Like their before photos look better than their after photos, trying to get clients. It just never sits right with me.
Yeah, and I think like it's hard for people who are just new to the gym or even intermediates. Just who should I pick as a coach? Because I mean, I don't really know that much about gains, so who knows their shit? Because some people seem like they're confident behind the stuff they're saying. Like it's almost like if someone's really confident when they're speaking, even though they don't know much, people will believe it because it sounds legit because they have confidence when they're speaking, right?
That's how V-Shred has a living, right?
Hmm?
Like, do you know V-Shred?
Yeah.
That's how he has a living, right? Like, I don't know if this is actually true, but the rumor is that V-Shred isn't even a trainer. Like, he's an actor. He's a figurehead of a brand. Mm-hmm. So when V-Shred dies, they'll use somebody else. I don't know if that's true or is he just like a good marketing trainer. But either way, like we can poke holes all day in the stuff that he says online. But people go through that process, and I don't sit there and assume the results are fake. Like anyone, if they try hard enough on anything, will get in shape, right? If you can get someone to buy in, like that confidence and that hype goes a long way. But I think there needs to be some weight behind it. Like you can have a confident Herbalife salesman, but if they're crashing someone's calories for 5-6 years, so their thyroid's in the trash, well, they've only done half a job.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I'm sure you have a lot of icks in the fitness industry as well. And not to be like negative or anything, but like as coaches, because when we're coaches, right, we care about our clients, we care about having good results. We love coaching. It seems like you do as well. Like I'm just interested in it, getting better at biomechanics, at just programming, at nutrition, at all these things. And it's just a never-ending journey. Like you learn more, you realize, oh shit, there's even more behind this.
100%. I mean, there's always more to learn, right? And this is the thing that sort of we tend to do is help coaches beat imposter syndrome by getting client results. And the thing I found in certainly the education space is that there was a lot of people, I would call it mental masturbation, where they're teaching exercise mechanics or functional nutrition, and this stuff's cool and we teach it, but can they actually apply it to clients, or do they just know more stuff? Mm-hmm. And I very much pride myself on the education offering that I do. I showcase that our coaches are actually getting better results with the clients as a response to what we do. And we work one-to-one with people, and we look at how they're getting results, and we look at their check-ins, and we look at the stuff that they're doing or not doing. We keep an eye on their clients and make sure they're held accountable to the clients actually getting the results that they paid for. Which is sort of like what a lot of coaches aren't doing, because very few, and this is right and wrong. Some coaches now, if you wanted to make a better business, you got better at your job when I started. Whereas now it's like, which business coach do you hire? Like it's always an uphill battle with when I'm speaking to new coaches. It's like, well, I've already paid however much for a business coach. And I'm going, and what products are you selling? Like, just because you said you're a fat loss coach doesn't make you a fat loss coach. You need to get some results to prove you can do that thing. Mm-hmm. So like that's sort of, if there's an ick in the fitness industry, it's that. It's people trying to think they need to scale their business before they even have a business to begin with. And that's something that's probably that it's more prevalent now than ever. And I think there's also a bunch of coaches that used to start on a gym floor and had a team. So they had management, they had mentors, they had people around them that they could collaborate and bounce ideas off when it came to getting results if their clients were stuck. Whereas now people, they've only got Instagram and studies and they don't have anyone to chat to, which is what we're trying to do with building a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, because I don't want to shit on people. We all start somewhere, right? We got to just get some results with some people,
Sure.
learn things along the way, adjust, adapt, learn, adapt, keep going. Like same with fitness goals, basically that with business goals. It's just a continuous road we're walking on.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're kind of saying, I guess, is like a lot of people focus very much on just getting clients and skipping a lot of the self-learning process and a lot of the crucial things. That's like the supportive structure under the house. They just start making the roof before they even have a basement, you know?
Yeah, and this is why I think sometimes some of my content can be a bit confused as me being a business coach. It's not. It's me just striking that point of like, if you build your house on sand, right, it's gonna come crumbling down at some point. Like if you are a good coach, you will never go broke again. And I've been very, very broke when I first started my career, right? Like I used to work at a Virgin Active here in the UK, like do a first class at 5 a.m., worked about 8, 9 p.m., used to work outside a nightclub 4 nights a week, handing out flyers till like 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to get people in the door to make money. And then I used to do topless waitering for Hindus or bachelorette parties, whatever they call them in Norway, on the weekends, just to be able to fund being a PT. But once you get to the point where you're making some money, you'll never really go, yeah, you might have good and bad months like any business, but you'll never go broke again because you always know you can grind and you always know you could get results. You have integrity amongst your audience. Whereas I think if you could come in and like have the best confidence that you said in the world and the best marketing strategy, and you could put loads of money into video editors and all this sort of stuff and hammer outreach and do a 10K month. But what happens when all those clients don't get results because you don't know what you're doing? It's easier to it's easier to retain business than get new business. And you don't want to be on this hamster wheel of always having to chase your tail and panicking because you haven't got the ability to do what the client's paid for. And that stuff will travel. Like your reputation will go with that. So I just think it's important that coaches need to take their actual education as it turns to being a better coach as seriously, if not more seriously in the early stages, than learning to be a good business owner.
Yeah. Because it's a lot of ups and downs, I guess, through over the years. When I started, of course, I didn't know really what the hell I was doing. I had been training myself for years and I always wanted to be a PT and a coach, and I thought it was really cool. But I had a lot of periods of just imposter syndrome because the systems, like, how is this making sense? Like, are clients happy? Like, how am I supposed to run things? What do I do now? But like the more you learn and the more confident you become in your knowledge and your results with your clients and everything, like you just lose more and more of that imposter syndrome. And it's a good feeling when you feel like I know my shit. Like I'm a good coach and I people can trust that I get them great results, you know? So it doesn't feel like you're just pushing something that you're unsure of on people. It just feels like you're helping people. And if they choose to hop on, it's win-win probably. But if they don't, that's fine as well. You know, I mean, yeah, it's really cool.
Imposter syndrome is a weird thing though, right? It's a double-edged sword because without a little bit of imposter syndrome, you'll never ever take the leaps forward that you need to. If it wasn't for feeling a little bit inadequate and feeling like a bit of imposter syndrome, I wouldn't have taken the leap to work for a big company in London. I wouldn't have taken the leap to Hong Kong. I wouldn't have invested in the mentors I've done. I wouldn't have continued my education because I would have felt I knew it all. So imposter syndrome is an important part of your business in order for you to keep learning. And as you said, like it's a never-ending journey there. So you've always got to have this little bit of desire of, or like people talk about that phrase, comparison's the thief of joy. And I think if it consumes you in the same way that if imposter syndrome consumes you, it can be very negative. But if I'm not looking at people on, whether it's social media, whether it's in my social circle, whether it's in my network, and going, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I want to understand what you're talking about. So I need to go and invest in people to make sure I understand what you're talking about. But on that flip side of that, and you said a key word there, which was systems. And this is what a lot of coaches don't have. When people talk about systems, they think business. When I talk about systems, I talk about coaching. So like especially when you're working online, you don't have the ability to hands-on test people's active and passive ranges of motion. You are working from photos. You may be working, if you're lucky, from some gym floor videos. And people end up scaling hugely without having an actual idea of how they work. And I did this for years, right? For years, I just invested in every mentor under the sun. I did a million courses. I had no ability to apply any of it. My results weren't getting any better. And it was only when an old colleague of mine, shout out to Adam Wright, who owns the Barn Boot Camp, had a system like, guys got this and girls got this. And maybe it was a bit overly simplistic, and I'm sure this is not exactly what he does today, but he was getting great results, despite being what you would consider a less personal approach. And it was actually when I thought, I don't think having a system is a less personal approach. Because let's think about this, right? If I've done about 7 courses on hypertrophy, and I'm studied and I'm caffeinated, and it's the early hours of the morning, and I'm ready to go, I'm fired up, I'll write a better hypertrophy program than I will from a blank piece of paper at 9 o'clock at night on my 27th check-in. So if I have a system that is replicable, that I can just tweak the small bits to help my clients and personalize it to them, I'll create better training programs. I'll create better nutrition strategies. I'll be able to have, if I have a system of how I run check-ins and how I go through a client's data to know when to adjust calories or training, right? If I have a formula that I go through, so my first check-in is like my 30th check-in, my service will get better and I will get better results as a byproduct. Whereas if you feel every check-in you're winging it based on what's said in the check-in form, you're going to get overwhelmed very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And like, I saw one of your posts, like, how do you kind of avoid being stressed out during a check-in? Like, take a look at your client's progress, like the Friday before the Sunday maybe, and just get prepared a little bit, and then you can focus on the mental stuff, because coaching is also a lot about stress management, like fatigue management, mental factors. Like, some people, the relationship goes to shit, or it's happened to me as well. Like, while I was building my business, I was training, my relationship went to hell, something else happened, financial stress, and it's like, well, I'm just hitting a wall. And just managing those things as well, and being a human with people.
I don't want to say that stuff's not important, because it absolutely is, right? It's personal training. You need to be personal, but most of the time, if you're a fat loss coach that's listening to this, or just someone that wants to lose fat themselves, if you're a potential client here of and you want to hire Julian and you want to make his life easier, right? It's like, well, you're coming to a coach, or your clients are coming to you because they can't get in shape themselves. They are, and that we could say they don't know knowledge. They don't have the perfect training program. They don't have the perfect meal plan or the recovery strategies. But in reality, most of them will know kind of what to do. Not as good as what you could do, but like kind of. But they're not doing it. They're telling them excuses. They're telling themselves they're too busy. They're telling themselves a story. Now, then they sign up to a coach, and then the coach tells themselves the same story that the client is telling themselves. So they get to a check-in, and they get this big anxiety-filled waffle of all the reasons why. Like, I got busy with work, and I ran out of food, and I had to go to Pizza Hut because it was the only restaurant in Oslo, and everything, right? And my dog ate my homework, and anything that they could come up with. And if you get lost in trying to put out those fires, you're never really addressing the actual thing. Are they making progress towards the goal that they're looking to achieve? So I think it's so important for coaches that you have objective data, right? Like no bullshit objective data, because I don't make the rules. If you need to lose weight in any way, and we can get more nerdy and sciencey about what that weight is, whether it's muscle or fat, but if you want to lose weight, you will need to be in a caloric deficit. And if you're not losing weight, you are not in a caloric deficit. So I like the Friday, for people who don't know what Julian was talking about, was like, I like a Friday status check with coaches. So every Friday you go through your client roster and you say, are they on track? So is Steve or Jane or Jacob on track with the targets you set at the start? Because it's amazing. And when I did this the first time, I was shocked. My jaw dropped, because I thought so many of my clients were on track, because I was just going through the process, trying to help them make 1% each week. And I looked over their program and went, they've dropped 3 kilos in 27 weeks. Like, what on earth am I doing? I'm a terrible coach. And it was only when I kept myself accountable to like, oh, right, I need to puff up their ass. And it means you can have a look, you can see who's on track, who's off track. And before all the check-in excuses come in, You can go, right, this is what I'm going to do with each one of my clients to make sure they push a little bit closer to their goals next week. And then when the stuff comes in, when the family stuff comes in, when the business building comes in, when life falls apart, you can be empathetic, but you still know what's going on. You're still in control. You're still bringing them back to the target. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the things go wrong in your life. And if the goal was to lose weight and you are not losing weight, you are not achieving that target. Now, things may have changed. And that's cool. And like the conversation there is taking you out of as the coach and having to know everything. It's like, look, hey, so when we started, you said we were going to lose 0.8 of our body weight per week. Now, looking at your data, you've had about like 10 meals out per week. Now, I know you said it was a very difficult time, and I understand that things are a bit crazy, maybe around Christmas or your work's picking up or whatever the excuse was. I'm like, so we have two options. What can we do to get closer to the target we originally set so you can achieve what you said you wanted to achieve at the start? Or do we need to change this goal? Like, both are fine. And if the client then agrees to go at a slower pace, that's cool. Then you can be empathetic and you can pull back. But at least the client knows it's going to be slower. And you're not sort of having this battle where expectations aren't communicated. And I think that's one of the most vital skills a coach can have. Because if you don't have that, like all the training approaches, nutrition approaches, anything, supplement regimens are all based on your client sticking to them. And your client sticking is all based on having a goal. Because if you don't have a goal and you don't have a target, how do you actually know if something's working? How do you know when they're not doing it? Because they might not know they're not doing it.
Yeah. And sometimes expectations maybe don't align completely with the reality of the situation. And sometimes people want to do 6 times a week training when they really don't have time for it. And then it's better to say, like, maybe we should step it down and like focus on more quality instead of just trying to get in the gym every single day. And sometimes clients will be like, but I want to train every day. But clearly they can't stick to it. So you got to just communicate with them and try to find a solution there.
You tie it into reality, right? Like I have a goal setting tracker that I give my coaches where it will showcase, right, you're this amount of weight. You can think you're this % body fat. You want to get to here. This means you're going to have to, it'll take you 18 weeks if you're going to lose 1% of your body weight per week. You choose the target together. And it will show you, and then I have a little thing that says, right, this is, if you want to lose 1% of your body weight per week, you need to do X, Y, and Z. If you want to lose 0.5%, you do X, Y, and Z. Now, based off 1%, and I'll often, this is how I say it. I'll go, cool. So, you mentioned to me that you think you're about 30% body fat and you're about 87 kilos. And you said from the picture here that you want to be around about 8%, right? Cool. So based off losing 1%, and we normally recommend 1% because it allows you to get a good return on your investment, whilst not being so difficult that life becomes really, really horrible, and we minimize any metabolic downregulation or muscle loss. This will take us around about 18 weeks. How does that sound? Now, they might go, oh, absolutely, that sounds amazing. Cool, set the goal. But they might go, yeah, that's all right. I'm like, okay, what makes you hesitant? Oh, well, I thought it'd be a bit quicker. Well, okay, we could shoot for 1.5 drop per week. However, that would take you 12 weeks, but I would need you to weigh all your food portions out. We can't really have any meals out over this next 18 weeks because you want an extreme goal. Are you okay with that? And if they go, yeah, that's fine. Set the goal and you push them hard, and you just sort of like, then you just sort of check on the day to see if they're feeling, if performance drops or libido drops or signs that you're going a bit too aggressive. But they might go, oh, yeah, but I've got Christmas next week and then my brother's birthday's the week after that. And then I'm going to Ibiza with the boys. And then you go, okay, well, how about we start at the 1% target? And then once all this stuff's out of the way, we can speed it up. And that guy's like, oh, yeah. So you've now got them excited about a goal. You've not got them thinking they can lose 1.5% of the body weight per week without the work that comes with it. And I think it's when they understand the work, it's up to the clients, because at the end of the day, if this was a Harry Potter story, as a coach, we are Dumbledore. Your client is Harry, right? So it's their story. There we go. It's their story. So as long as they're happy, they know the work, they're not under some false sense of security that you can train 1 day a week and go into a tiny deficit and still get crazy results. If they know what they're expected of, they're much more likely to follow it. And you just need to hold them to it.
Yeah. Just setting expectations, mapping out like the client journey so people know like this is what we're moving towards and this is where we are right now and this is how we're going to do it and this is how it's going to probably end up if we follow this thing. But I mean, things happen. And like one of my clients, for example, he's a digital nomad. He's traveling, switching countries every freaking 2 weeks. Sometimes he's a week in South America, 3 weeks in Germany, 1 week in New York City. And it's like a lot of just, you got to just keep up with it and just adjust things depending on the situation, because sometimes he doesn't have access to a gym for a week. Sometimes he has for 3 weeks. And sometimes the food labels are totally different in a different country. And just things change all the time, you know. And some people are just based in one location. They have a family. They have the same schedule every single week. And it's a total different situation.
And for that client who's a digital nomad, right? It's that thing is like, look, this is really cool. And I wouldn't tell you not to do this because I want to do this. But you just have to be aware that if you're bouncing between countries and relying on restaurants and not understanding food labels and how much your portion sizes are, that this may be a little bit slower. And that's fine. Like if we think about the bodybuilder that just eats, sleeps, and breeds bodybuilding, right? He will get in shape with certainty, right? But how many people want to live that way? But if you don't expect the results of the bodybuilder, if you want to live the life of the digital nomad. So it's like, as long as you're okay with like, right, what are my priorities? Where does this body fit into my priorities? And then adjust accordingly.
Yeah. And just helping people see that they're improving and slowly improving and getting towards the target. And maybe they're not in the same situation as that bodybuilder who can optimize everything and do everything perfectly and train every day and eat perfectly every single day. Exactly. And just reevaluating like expectations every now and then, because that's been the case with that client and some of my other clients who's been traveling as well. Like they're just like, why, like if you want to eat out in restaurants every single day, then like that's probably gonna impact things. It's gonna be harder to know how much you're taking in calorie wise, protein wise, and it's gonna be like the more systemized we have things and the more numbers we have tracked in a neat and tidy way, like the less leeway there is for just random shit flying all over the place in general.
100%. I spent 4 years living in Hong Kong, right? And most people's kitchens are the size of a postage stamp in Hong Kong. So everyone eats out in restaurants and everyone travels for business and everyone has business dinners. So like no one can or is willing to cook. So unless they had the exposable income to have a food prep service, you'll spend the whole transformation looking at menus and choosing best options. Now, it's weird for a guy that sort of works in companies that were very much big on the big, huge transformations to kind of go, well, I've just kind of got to accept that my results are going to be the best that's possible with the tools I had, rather than being the best that was possible. But like, that's the way it is, right? Like, that's the way they want to live. And if they don't want to change that, then that's fine. But they need to know that it's not going to be, it's like trying to have $1 million business, right? But not wanting to spend on ads or education or marketing or like anything like this. It's like, well, it's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah, and it's the same on realized business wise. After having several business coaches, and like everyone has a different approach, more on systems, more on sales, more on just organic marketing. And it's the same if you want to grow your business as it is with building muscle mass. You got to be like, show up, post content, improve the quality of your content, be on stories, engage with other people. It's social media after all, you know, be real with people, show your personality, just connect with people and just freaking network like we're doing kind of right now, and like teaching people along the way via podcasts, emails, posts on Instagram, videos on TikTok, blah blah blah. It's
I still haven't got into the TikTok thing.
I hate TikTok.
I'm too old for TikTok. I just someone could say that it can give me 1,000 followers, like 10,000 followers straight away. I'm like, nah. It's too many. I'm
most
fine
people
with Instagram,
on TikTok,
YouTube, I'm good.
Yeah, I think most people on TikTok aren't that interested in investing in themselves. It's more just entertainment and a lot of hate. Like, it's so bad. It's like if someone's like 170 centimeters or something, and then you just take a video of yourself, someone's going to comment like, how short are you, bruh? Like 140, 130, bitch. Like, there's so much negativity in there.
It washes over me now, that sort of stuff, right? But
yeah.
Like it's I never got into the TikTok thing, but as I said, this is I'm with the business side of stuff. I'm still a work in progress, right? Like I'm doing all right, but this is why I have a business mentor, and like they are worth the weight in gold. And at no point do I want to make it seem like I'm slamming business mentors, because I'm really not. It's just I think people use them too soon in their career when they're not good enough to really make them work.
Yeah. Same as with clients, fitness wise, just like thinking about where am I on my path and like what's my focus point right now. Like not skipping the vital stuff and just focusing on like crazy details before you get the basics right.
Well, if you put on an advanced hypertrophy seminar, right, people would sign up to that more than the beginner's hypertrophy seminar, right? Which is stupid. Yeah. And it's because like most results come from the unsexy stuff, like fat loss. Like once you set the calories and macros and the training program, it kind of stops being sexy. It's like go to bed early, get up, eat the same thing, go and train, get some steps, go to bed, wake up, eat the same thing. And you do that for long enough until you've got abs. So the people that the clients of yours that will get the best results are the ones that are happy getting stuck into the process and learn to love the intricacies of it, as opposed to the people that like the novelty. And then when it's boring, they will start shipping and changing and doing something else. And jobs as coaches to try and keep that from happening for as long as possible. But it's down to the client at the end of the day.
Yeah. Just the people who are willing or like learning that they have to just do the same things daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, what's it called, every 10 years, every freaking your whole life, just keep going and repeating the important stuff all the time, again and again and again and again and again and again. And it's not that sexy, you know. That's maybe why it's easier to buy something that's like this 2-month fat loss program, you're going to lose 20 kilos and it's going to be easy and blah, blah, blah. But
we can all do something for a day. It's harder to say, can we string these days together for a month?
And just having everything systemized. That's kind of what having a coach is as well. Just having someone in your corner, having someone to set up your programming, to adjust things along the way, because barbell back squat might not be a quad movement for you, really. And like different exercise might not be advantageous for you, but it might be for someone else. And how do you figure all these factors out on your own? How many sets should I do? How many reps should I do? How hard should I push? How can I learn to push harder? Like when should I change exercises? What happens if I get injured? There's a lot of things there, and nutrition as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And like personally, I keep everything in my life is like organized because I have to at this point. Like daily task list, all my tasks, like PT tasks for the gym job, like coaching tasks for my business at home, like tasks in personal life. I track my clients' numbers in the gym. I track my online clients' nutrition and training. I track my business numbers. I track like everything, because if something isn't tracked for me, like I just don't know where it's going.
Well, yeah, if you can't you can't manage what you don't measure, right? You need to measure something if you want to make a difference for it. Like it doesn't, and for people listening, doesn't mean that you have to necessarily track your calories, but you need to do something that allows you to be consistent. So, like whether that's following a meal plan or whether that's tracking calories, like you can make great progress by just cleaning up your diets, but you'll never get to the absolute peak of your physical appearance. Let's just assume this appearance thing, just cleaning things up.
Yeah.
Because there'll be hidden stuff. There'll be lattes, there'll be sauces, there'll be just little bites of stuff that you don't have, there'll be meals out that you're not considering. Like there's a bunch of stuff. And this is why, like, if you really want to make a big difference, having things that you measure, some level of data to know you're going down the right path. So you're not spending 6 months trying to lose weight, trying to climb the ladder to weight loss, only to realize your ladder was leant up against the wrong wall because you weren't measuring stuff along the way to see if this was the right path. This was the right ladder.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And of course, a lot of the job as a coach and as a personal trainer is like helping people like see if they need help. And like most people actually could benefit from help, but it's just people have different perspectives. And I think people like you and me, you invest in coaching, courses, education, books, all the freaking time. Personally, like when I started my business, I was like investing in business coaching, almost not affording rent just to pay for business coaching and just getting because I have this feeling that I need to freaking move forward all the freaking time.
Yes, I think all the best people have that, right? There's always a drive to push forward, right? And I think maybe I should have more, right? But like I'm very much a very firm believer of when it comes to business stuff, stick with one mentor and go from there. Because it's I've seen a lot of coaches post like on Spotify, right? Their top 5 podcasts from the year. And you'll be amazed how few top fives on Spotify from coaches have any coaching podcasts in.
Yeah.
Like if you compare this to my bookshelf here, right, we've got the Mineral Fix, the Science of Running, the Science of Strength Training, the Salt Fix, Darren Brown, that's a magician one because I like magic. Royal Road to Card Magic, Cracking the Metabolic Code, Back onto Fitness, Precision Nutrition Manual, Mike Mensa's book, The Science of Nutrition, The Obesity Fix, Ultra Processed Food, Ultimate Performance, Body Transformation, Meal Plan Design, Trigger Points, a TED Talk one, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, Robert Sapolsky, Behave, The One Thing. There is no business books.
Mm-hmm.
They're all coaching. They're all training books. They're all nutrition books. Because the biggest thing that my linchpin is like the better your coach will be, the more you can warrant charging for your services, the better your business will be. So like, while I think that's very much of a piece in your thing, I think if you're a coach now and you're getting lost so far down the business world that you're not a coach anymore, are you in the right industry? You'll be amazed things I've seen in business coaching mentorships, right? I've seen generally coaches that have been in the industry like 2 years drop a message in the group going, hi, how can I find someone to do my training programs for me? Because I hate writing training programs. And I'm like, get out the industry because you're a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how
is your job. That's your exact job, man.
It's your one job. Right? Like, it's your one, because it's not even like, put aside nutrition. Like, you can say, well, are we qualified to write nutrition programs or not? Right? At least you can make an argument why you're not wanting to write them. Like, training, that is literally the job you're qualified for. Yeah, there are coaches today that don't want to do it. And because we see this as I can work from my laptop in Bali. Right? It's the same thing. We have more coaches than ever before are calling them transformation coaches, fat loss transformation coaches, who have never lost fat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it blows my mind.
Yeah, I that's kind of what the ick I get is when people haven't really trained for a year. Maybe they haven't even built a successful coaching business, but then they're a business mentor and they're 18 years old and they don't have any content, and it's just like, stop.
You can see through that,
stop spamming me, bro.
You can see through this a mile away, though, right? It's like the one I get at the moment is video editors, right? That's the new thing. The new thing is video editing. After Alex Hormozy put out these new sort of captions and things in the background, everyone wants to edit like Alex Hormozy. So I get like a bunch of video editors, and like no one does the research, right? Like they'll look up a picture. Hey, are you looking for a video editor? And I'm like, my podcast clips are always edited professionally. Like, there's no way I'm doing them. Like you're very clear that I've already got one. And you go on their page and they barely got a post. I'm like, well, why would I go with you? And this is a great parallel actually to coaches, because, and I made this point today on Instagram. You will probably get 1,000 bad business mentors slide into your DMs and thousands of video editors slide into your DMs. And I bet you no one listening to this has ever purchased the products from any of them, right? But they will post content online with no results, no authority, right? Having never gone through a transformation themselves, never talk about training, always talk about mindset. Their page is full of Canva graphics. And they're wondering why they're not getting leads in the door. And I was like, well, you are the equivalent of that editor sliding into someone's DMs who has nothing on their page to say they're any good at what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there are people who have passion for it and always keep improving and just build a foundation first. And there are people who just try to jump straight to the top, make some fast bucks, quick bucks, and just really do it to make money. And I'm
all for faking it until you make it, but like don't bullshit people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't assume that you tell people you can do something you have no evidence that you can do.
Yeah, for sure. The thing is, instead of our podcast, I actually thought that same thing, because now all the Spotify yearly summaries are coming up on stories, and I thought like Joe Rogan is number one, and like this other random podcast is number two. I mean, in the past, I had all these topics I wanted to learn about, like I'm reading books about different stuff, but now it's just like I'm listening to fitness podcasts, some fitness-specific business podcasts, if I think it's like the approach that is close to mine, and that's just all I listen to, just to get better, because I stay in my lane, and I know I used to be a guitarist. I wanted to be the best guitarist ever. But like right now, I don't really know that much about music. I don't really care because this is my thing. I don't know shit about really cooking or carpenting or finances. I just focus on my thing and try to get better. Because if I want to get better at all these different random topics at the same time, I'm not going to be able to improve.
And if you want to do that, that's fine. But what you've got to understand is that you've got a hobby that can pay you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You haven't got a business. You know,
Yeah.
like, and that's like my sole focus is growing what I do, growing my ability to educate as many coaches as humanly possible to get better results for the clients. Right? I'm not trying to run 6 businesses at once. I'm not trying to run a marketing agency. This is the reason why I don't business coach, because I like not why I wouldn't be qualified, but also like, well, even if I was, like, what do I want to be known for? What am I good at? I think coaches should do the same thing in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like the skeleton, by the way, and I noticed you have a lot of videos. Just like, I was curious, like, how do you kind of learn more fitness related stuff? Like, have you taken courses from different people in the industry, biomechanics stuff, programming stuff?
Oh my god, yes.
And like, yeah, I noticed you had a video like just touching the skeleton, checking it out, different parts, just doing some squats, and just feeling it out a little bit, and it kind of makes sense, right? Just practically assessing like how things feel and where things are in the body and different things.
But this is the big thing. This is not me calling anyone out for being inferior in regards to study, because this is the problem I had for most of my career. It was like, when most people study, they do what I call the first part of studying, which is sort of like deep study. They're just like go in. They're just like looking at an anatomy textbook and just praying they understand it. And I'm like, well, most people don't learn that way. But we're not really taught how to learn. So I don't know how it is in Norway, but in schools in the UK, it's very much you're trained to remember exams more than you are actually to learn topics and the understanding and to think critically. So the way I always explain to my students how you should best study and learn is, first thing is, let's say you block out, it could be any time you want to do, but let's say it's a 30-minute block. And let's say you want to learn about the anatomy of the shoulder. So the first 10 minutes will be deep study. So deep study is where you get up your anatomy textbook. Maybe you'll get a pen and paper and you'll write origin, insertion, action, right? Because anything practical and applicable doesn't work. It's pointless if you've not learned something new. You have to do a bit of deep, boring study to have something to apply. The next thing is active study. Because if you just take the deep study and go into the gym floor, it might mean nothing to you. So active study is going, right, okay, right, I've learned the things, actions of the shoulder. So maybe I'll watch a video of Jordan Shallow or Kassem or Ben Yanes or me or Paul Standel, or insert your favorite person in the fitness industry here, teaching a shoulder press. So now you go, oh, okay, now I can see what's happening as he's doing this. And then I would say then is active play is the final 10 minutes. And that's when you go on the gym floor, or you make a bit of content about it, or you'll write some slides for an education for your clients, or you'll whatever you want to do, right? Or you'll play on the skeleton and do something with it. Like, do something active that puts this into practice. And then the fourth component is reinforce. So if you don't have a community around you, you don't know whether the thing you're thinking about is the right conclusion or not. So go and speak to mentors, book consults, ask questions. And that mentor might go, oh, that's exactly how it is. And you go, oh, I'm really good. Or that's all right, but have you thought of it this way? And that opens your eyes to more stuff. So I think taking a more of that 4-step approach to studying will get you way more success than just looking at a textbook and just praying that you learn how the shoulder works, because it won't.
Mm-hmm. And just practical application of the literature and the stuff you read. And yeah, I touched on it some of the last podcast as well, just like, because we have science on stuff, we have people with a lot of knowledge, but like testing things out for yourself, seeing it with your clients, maybe experimenting a little bit, saying like, I don't know if this is going to be on paper 100% optimal, or we're going to try this thing for you and just try to change some things and just see what happens, because we're all just hairless monkeys on a floating ball, not knowing really what's going on. So we're just trying to define 100%
optimal. What does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
I got caught saying this with a mentor of mine recently, and he said, like, well, what do you mean by optimal? Like, well, what do you mean? Like, there are so many ways to grow muscle or lose fat. What is optimal? What is practical? Do we know for certain? Like, if I've got someone that can't squat deep, right, I can make an assumption that they've got a longer femur and shorter fib, and that could be a reason why they're struggling to squat to depth. Or I could assume that they have a deep hip socket, and maybe I could do an active and passage range test to kind of like get a little bit of a better idea if that's the case. Or I can assume they have tight rec fem, or I can assume they haven't got the tolerance or the strength in those bottom ranges. But even if I do all the tests, I have an educated guess. I never know. So what we're doing is as coaches, we're just experimenting. Right, cool. So I looking at this person's squat, and I look at their limb length, and I'm going to assume that their femur length being longer than the tib fib is the reason why they can't squat. Let's try a heel wedge. Why not?
Yeah.
And then does it make it better? No? Cool. Not that. Try a couch stretch. Does it make it better? Yeah. Okay, cool. There could be some rec fem stuff in here. Right? Like, and it's all you're doing is like a process elimination. I think coaches could lose a lot of stress and imposter syndrome when they take away the pressure of knowing all the things. If they're like, look, I don't know anything about this person put in front of me. I'm just going to ask questions. I'm going to try stuff. I'm going to find out. And the longer we work together, the more I find out. And it'll probably help retention because you and your client feel you're in it together rather than I've imparted my wisdom and they didn't get a result and then they left.
Because I have the same. I think the same way. Like no one knows everything, and no coach is gonna know everything about you and everything about your structure and your anatomy and everything about your habits and your mental state from day one. It's a work in progress, and it's just picking some pieces, trying some things, removing some pieces, moving things around, maybe adding some sets, taking away some sets. Like sometimes people are doing too much, sometimes they're not doing enough, sometimes different exercises can be better. There's so many ways to grow muscle, like you're saying, and there are so many exercises to pick and things that can contribute to the same goal. And I think
that brings you back to systems, right? Like again, like you said, like we teach our students with program design that what we call the pillars of program design. So often people get caught, especially now exercise mechanics has become so popular, that people know there's so many options that you just get stuck. Whereas if I can kind of go, right, well, let's look at this. Who's the client you got in front of you? So let's pick a periodization model that's going to work for this client. Now, some people say periodization is pointless for Gen Pop because no one sticks to it. I'm like, maybe that's true, but it can guide you. So let's say I've got a beginner. I might give them a 5x5. Is it going to be useful? Probably not, because they can't generate enough intensity and they're probably not skilled enough to be safe. So how about if I do higher reps because I can practice, the load's less, so it's safer. Okay, so I'm probably going to do something called a linear periodization model, where I start them with a higher repetition range and lower load, and I increase the intensity over time, right? That sounds pretty reasonable. Cool. So now I know that I'm going to be starting in a 10 to 15 rep range. Right. Am I going to do sets of 15 deadlifts? Probably not. Am I going to do 5x5 leg extensions? Probably not. So wherever you decide to start the rep range, now picking the exercises is going to be easier. Picking the sets is going to be easier. Picking the tempos is going to be easier. Because are you going to do a 5-2-1-0 tempo on a set of 20? No, because it would take you an hour and a half to complete the set. So like it's like you're probably going to go quicker, more controlled tempos in those, and you might go slower on the strength stuff. So I think having a system of how you do everything when it comes to writing program designs, writing meal plans, not only streamlines how quickly you can deliver stuff to a client, but also gets to the point where it's like you don't get lost in the admin of program design. You get excited by the creativity of program design because you're just adjusting the templates for the people that matter.
Problem solvers. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers. Fitness coaches are also problem solvers, I think.
Of course. So what we do.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. I think in Norway, there are a lot of great coaches, but there are also a lot of coaches with a lot of knowledge. I know for a fact, some of them have more knowledge than me and more experience, but like having this cocky attitude because you have a lot of knowledge feels like really annoying to me. One of those things that also annoys me because being a bit humble and being like a good person, because fighting over who knows more about muscle growth is kind of stupid.
Well, I said at the start about how I learned that systems are important was from a guy called Alan Wright. Now, I have spoken to Alan for a number of years. It'd be good to connect with him. And he might have studied so much and be so much smarter than me. Who knows? But at the time, I had more years in the industry. I was more book smart than him. I understood science and physiology and anatomy and mechanics more than him. But at the time, he was getting better results than me. Why? Because he had a system. Now, if I close myself off from learning from anybody less experienced than me, I wouldn't have learned one of the most valuable lessons of my career. And like your clients are way more successful than us in so many avenues in life. Yet I see coaches all the time shut off their advice because they don't know enough about training. I'm like, well, yeah, but they're telling you why they can't stick to the plan, and you're ignoring them. And this is the reason why you're not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Communication is important, and just yeah, I mean, also when it comes back to coaching, just people who communicate better and communicate well and can put their ego aside, they get better results because they every time, yeah. Yeah, sometimes, some clients do everything, some do some other stuff, even though you try to communicate well, and some people don't do much because some people have a really like spark of motivation. I'm going to join a fitness coaching program, and then 2 days later it's like, oh, I'm not feeling it anymore. So yeah, just communicating.
And that happens to a lot of coaches, right? When you look at motivation for fat loss results, there's something I call a push and a pull motivation. So you see it all the time where coaches are really good at getting their clients to lose the first 5-10 kilos, but really struggle with them losing the last 5-10 kilos. So why is it that someone, because again, what took you to halfway is going to be the same stuff that's going to get you to the photo shoot image. So why is that second half so much more difficult? Well, it's because the mindset of the client changed. So early on in a transformation, and then and this is for anyone who wants to lose fat, think of it this way: when you're going to start a fat loss journey, you've probably all lost a little bit of weight, but never seen it through. And it's the same thing. You have a push motivation. So what I call a push motivation is that you'll look in the mirror every day and you'll be unhappy with what you see. Right? You feel like your partner's maybe doesn't like you anymore. Your mates are taking the piss because you're the fat bloke. You look down in the shower and you can't see your penis. It's like something reminds you daily that you're not happy. And that's enough for you to put down the chocolate bar, get out for a run when it's cold. And then at some point, you get to the point where you're not fat anymore. You're not the fat guy. Your mates stop taking the piss. Your partner's finding you sexy again. You can see your penis in the shower. But you're not where you want to be. You're not where you said you'd set out to be. And now it's like, well, yeah, I want to be further, but that seems like hard work and things are pretty good now. So, and if you keep going down the same approach as the coach or for your own motivation, if you keep thinking the same way that got you here, you're going to sort of taper off. And not only will you taper off, and this is a big lesson for these people who are in this position right now, it's not that you'll stay. If you get comfortable at 12%, 9 times out of 10, you won't stay at 12%. You'll slowly start to slip back into the old habits because then let's say you were 90 kilos, you got down to 80. You're still a 90 kilo person in an 80 kilo body. So all the habits you had at 90 kilos are going to start slipping back in. So you or the coach that's working with you needs to now look at a pull motivation. So a pull motivation is now what's going to pull you over the line. So this is like where when you initially start with someone, and then coaches on their first sessions always do the first part of their consult really well. They'll go, wait, like, why are you not happy? Like precision nutrition, have you ever done that course? Talk about the 5 whys. Want to find a real reason why someone wants to lose weight. Like, I want to lose some fat isn't enough. It's, I felt uncomfortable ever since I was bullied at school. Like, they want that little uncomfortable thing. And that's great. But then they miss the next bit. It's like, well, not only how do you want to look, because that's how people stop, but how do you want to feel? How do you want to behave? How do you want to perform? What do you want to be able to do with your life? And you almost want to paint this image in that initial session and get the client excited about their future self, like almost start to envision themselves being in that position. And when you've now conjured that emotion, that when clients get to that halfway point, it's now not motivation to get them out of pain. It's more, hey, John, you remember you said you wanted to take your shirt off at the beach, right? And look better than your mates. Clock's ticking, mate. You've got 8 weeks to Ibiza. What on earth are you doing? And that may seem a harsher bit of motivation. It's not as empathetic, but the empathy bit is subsided now. It's like, hey, okay, come on, man. You're not happy. We can get this. Carry on. Let's do it. It's now, look, let's get this done. We have a time frame. This is why booking photo shoots is great, because the clock's ticking. There is urgency. Mm-hmm. And a lot of coaches, including myself, a lot of my career did not have urgency or do not have urgency. And the more you can go, right, we're counting down. This is how long we're going to diet. And it stops then. So you either piss about with it and lose half the weight, or you enlist. The same reason why people have great goals. People get in shape for weddings or photo shoots, holidays, do better because the holiday is pulling them over that finish line.
Mm-hmm. If there's a candlelight like straight on my finger, like the motivation to get away from it is really high. But once I get a little bit away from it, the motivation to keep going further away is not that high anymore, and I need to rely on just like the long-term picture that's kind of harder to see and kind of integrate into your head.
And the key thing is making that long-term picture less long-term, right? Because if you're thinking of it as a purely long-term thing, like if it feels too far, that's why I don't like, like SMART goals everyone talks about. I don't like them, but I think they're missing. It doesn't sound as sexy, but like SMEAT goals, right? Specific. A goal needs to be specific. Cool, right? It needs to be measurable, because we've established earlier on, if you don't measure something, you can't manage it, right? Right. Then you've got attainable, right, and realistic. They mean the same thing. So like, and while it has to be attainable, but I don't think it needs to be realistic, or whatever way around you want to say that. Because the problem I find with a lot of coaches setting goals, or people set goals, they set goals that are too realistic. And no one comes to a personal trainer and going, hey, I'm 35% body fat. Hey, yeah, my goal is just to be a little bit less fat. I would like to be 28% body fat. Like, no one really wants that. No one wants to be still the fat bloke, but a little bit less the fat bloke. So when things get hard, when it's cold, when you don't want to go to the gym, is it enough? So I would rather find out what the real goal is. Like, if we had no barriers, if I told you it was impossible for you to fail, where would you want to be? And they're going to say a bigger goal. It's like people saying they don't want to be a millionaire because they've heard someone was depressed once when they had £1 million. It's like, well, the problem is you don't want depression. It's not that you don't want £1 million. Everyone wants more money than they can spend. And everyone would probably want the best body of their dreams if they knew it wasn't going to come with any baggage. So once you have that, now it's like, right, let's set the goal for that. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen in 12 weeks. It might, depending on where your starting point is, it might happen in 6 months. And then our job is to make a realistic goal from that. Cool. We've got this goal where you're 120 kilos. You need to get to 68. Let's get to 110, first milestone. Because then the 68 body that you're envisioning is still getting you up doing the cardio. That's the thing that motivates you to go, right? When you look at these montages on YouTube of these really, really overweight people that made these crazy transformations, right? Through often terrible ways of doing it, but they got there, and all fair play to them. They're normally motivated by people like Chris Bumstead, right? They're normally motivated by a fitness model. They're not motivated by the average bloke down the pub. And this is where I think we have to break that goal down into realistic milestones. But if the goal isn't exciting enough to create movement, people bail out of it.
And it's kind of the same people talk about with financial goals. Like when you go from living on the street to having an apartment, being comfortable, having enough food, and having a decent wage. Like once you get there, like the motivation to get there is super high. But when you get there, it's like watching Netflix, or just spending almost all my time learning anatomy and business stuff and training stuff, and just it's not as high. It's kind of the same, right?
Yeah, it's like people respond more to get out of pain than they do to go towards pleasure.
Yeah.
So like this is why like losing the first 5-10 kilos isn't always as much of an achievement for a coach, because the client naturally would probably respond to getting out of pain. Whereas moving towards pleasure, that's when the coach really is like, right, okay, let's this is where they show their worth. Because it's like, well, this is harder. So how do I harness this and get my client excited about moving towards something that is uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between good coach and bad coach. And that comes back to that thing about good communication. Good communication, people will always win out.
For sure. And do you think some people just have a different, like more testosterone, a different mindset? Or do you think most people can learn to just push towards excellence in that way? Maybe a difficult question.
I don't think it's necessarily testosterone. I think there are. It's an interesting question, right? Because when we look at, it's like saying, is fat loss nature versus nurture, right? And I did a lecture for my students about this recently. And while I think everyone has the ability to get lean, our nurture and our upbringing has a huge impact on our ability to do this. So everyone physically can. Like people say that they don't have the genetics, they're just big boned or whatever. That's hogswash. But if we also need a lot of empathy with people at the same time. Like if I grew up in the middle of a city where I had Deliveroo every night and never ate any vegetables and I naturally didn't like the taste of them, I'm probably going to find it much, much harder to get and stay in shape than the person who lived on the farm, grew and picked their own food, had to walk 6 miles to a local shop, or learned to cook because he didn't have any takeaway options. Like that person is naturally going to find it easier based off their upbringing. And I think the same thing when it comes to sort of willpower and motivation. It's like, has someone been brought up, whether it's from parents, whether it's from school, whether it's from lifestyle, whether it's from knockbacks, to be resilient? Or have they always been handed it stuff? I think it's the elements of why we see a lot of like child celebs go like when they hit adulthood, like mental health goes to trash because they're used to being handed everything and told how amazing they are. And then when we're told, well, life isn't fair, it's like participation awards and this stuff that we get nowadays, that we're going to see people that are being less resilient to stuff. We already, and this is why I'm going to sound like a really old man here, but we already see it in like when we look at online, right? Victimhood mentality, people moaning about anything. Everyone is triggered. Everyone is offended by something. Like, and I don't think this is a coincidence of people that have been taught not to be resilient. That oh, it's okay. It's just taking part. You're brilliant. You can do whatever you said. You know, whatever you want to be, you could be. A bit of that's fine, but you don't see. You see people that are willing to work down the mines in the 60s and never complained a single day in their life. And what's the difference? Well, like, yes, could they have achieved more? Maybe. But the flip side of that is that they've learned how to have a rock solid mindset because they've had to. There's no other option. Life's hard, get on with it. So I think our upbringing, which may or not be, might not be in your control. If we take that book there from Robert Sapolsky, who is pretty much a determinist and feels like every decision is already made for you for the entirety of life. Like, you can't choose your parents. You can't choose where you lived. You can't choose where you're brought up. You can't choose what you're access to. You can't chance how that you've responded to that. So I feel for people, but this is the power of coaching, right? It's sort of having that good mentor that teaches you that. Someone's got to teach you. Is it a parent? Is it a teacher? Is it a coach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always think like mindset and good habits and is built like over time.
Well, habits and mindset as well is different, right? Because you can make the mindset shift considerably easier if you're really good at building somebody's habits. I always tell this story, and I'm big on shouting people out for good stuff. There was a guy called Tobias Young I had on my podcast. He's a coach. He's a habits-based coach. He's very much the slow and steady fat loss coach. But he's so good. That's not a criticism. Like, he's so good at what he does. And he told me this story with this woman who, her biggest calorie bump in the day over the course of what she was meant to eat was she had like a bottle of wine a night, which was like 700-800 calories, right? And instead of trying to tell her not to have the wine like most coaches would, he went, well, what makes you buy the wine? What's the cue in this habit? Because when you look at habits, there's a cue, a routine, and a reward. So in this case, her routine was drinking wine. Her reward was enjoyed the wine and relaxed. Her cue, though, was she got a wine of the month email, like a box that came. And well, how'd you order the box? Well, I get an email. Well, could you unsubscribe from the email? Like, if he tackled the routine, if he told her to willpower away to not drink any wine when it's sitting there in the fridge staring in the face, like, not to call it out, but my wife is a chocolate addict, right? And we have cupboards and fridge drawers full of chocolate. Now, I could be the most motivated man in the world to achieve my fat loss, but if every time when I'm tired, I'm stressed, at some point my day's going to kick me in the ass, and I'm going to open the fridge, I'm going to see a chocolate bar, and I'm going to grab one, right? And it might be fueled by that. It might be fueled by the fact that she hasn't eaten it in 12 months, and like, well, I don't want it to go to waste, right? Like, there's so many things that can happen. So telling me not to have them is harder. Getting rid of them so I don't have the temptation is easier. So she unsubscribed from the email. All of a sudden, she didn't want the wine anymore because it wasn't there. Now, so I think it's a really, really interesting question that you asked, right? Because it's almost like, how much can we solve? There's an old Andrew Huberman question, right? It's like, can you solve the mind with the mind, or do you solve the mind with the body? And the answer can be both. But when we look at things of solving the mind with the mind, unless you've got access to ayahuasca, you're looking at therapy, you're looking at journaling, you're looking at stuff that takes a long time. The quicker way is doing stuff with the body, training, making better habits, like eating better, like sleeping well. Like these things build momentum. So like from a coaching standpoint, it's like, well, yes, you can say willpower, you can say discipline, you can Jocko willing it till the cows come home. But if you don't make someone's environment, or you don't make your own environment, because obviously we're not just talking to coach here, we're talking to people who are potentially your current clients or future clients. If your environment is not set up to be conducive for your fat loss efforts, you're fighting an uphill battle, because your willpower now may be great. When you're in that middle ground and you're a little bit more comfortable, and when you've been held up late for work, or when your wife dumps you, or something like this, and it's there, and we have more. Like, I generally feel that willpower is harder today than it ever was. We see these montages of the 1950s versus today, and how everyone was leading the 1950s. Well, also, they didn't have as much Ubers and public transport. They walked everywhere, right? We didn't have the amount of ultra-processed food affecting our gut microbiome and how well we absorb and digest foods. We weren't as chronically inflamed. We didn't have as much hidden calories in our food. We didn't have supermarkets that give you an aisle of chocolate bars right before the checkout counter. The analogy I always think about is like, well, this is the first time that someone can be really into a diet, go into a Tesco's or whatever supermarket you had over there, and they could be really good. They could go in and go, pick up the sandwich. Like, no, I'm not. I'm going to have the salad. And then they pick up a Coke and they go, no, I'm not going to have the water. And they can do this and make good decisions, draining their ability to make further decisions. And then they get to the counter, ready to pay for their really well done. They've worked so hard and drained themselves of energy, making these good choices that they didn't want to make, but they needed to make for the bigger goal. And then the cashier goes, do you want buy one, get one free Kit Kats? And that was just the final decision that broke the camel. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. And she buys the Kit Kat. And then because she feels like a failure, she hits the fuck it button. She buys another one. She buys a cake on the way home. And then that's 3 days. So like we're in a really awkward's not the right word. We're in a really interesting and unique position than ever before, where yes, it is a willpower issue, but it is not fair to compare you to somebody who had a completely different set of circumstances. We need willpower. Our decisions are being tested more than ever before. We have 1,000 emails to send. Like, one of the first things I did, but I don't coach that many clients anymore. When I did is I looked at their diary. How can we minimize the decision fatigue you make? So if I could look at like your environment around your house and eliminate some of these things, if I could have dedicated email times, if I could have walking breaks to give you a break from the office, if I could make sure you just wear the same thing every day. Like Steve Jobs wore the same black t-shirt every day. Not exactly the same, otherwise he'd smell, but the same style. So he never had to choose what he wore. Taking decisions allows him to make better decisions later in the day. That's what minimalism is. So yeah, it could be a whole podcast in itself, but that is a great question, because it's like, there's so many factors in this, and it's a minefield.
Yeah, planning goes a long way. Doing some damage control before something happens, so you don't have to use so much willpower when you're just in the water. Just think, I'm going in the water. Maybe I can do something first before I just jump in there without planning and just can't swim and it's cold.
That's a seesaw as well, right? Because if you, for example, like say I want to buffer some calories because I know I'm going to go for an occasion on Saturday night, that's quite smart, right? And there's two things to think about this. If I've got a meal on Saturday and I'm going to buffer 300 calories on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to allow 900 extra on Saturday, that's proactive. If I do go out on Saturday and overconsume 900 calories and then try and take 300 calories off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, from a weight loss perspective, that's the same. From a mentality perspective, totally different, because now you're panic dieting, right? And that panic dieting will mean that every time you overeat, you think you have to restrict the next day. It is the same thing, but the mentality around this and the chance of you making those mistakes again is totally different. In the same way that if I took that 300 buffer and let's say I did a 500 buffer to give me 1,500 calories, that might mean I'm so hungry that I consume 4,000 calories on Saturday. And I've now ruined it by doing the same good thing. Like, too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. So there's a lot of trial and error, right? And like, no one said that losing weight was easy. It's simple. It's simple. It's calories in versus calories out. Kinda. But it's simple, but it's not easy. And one of my biggest gripes with coaches at the moment, you probably have seen me rant about this on Instagram quite a lot, is coaches are now oversimplifying it to it's just calories in versus calories out, and nothing else matters, right? And we see this in terms of like the first problem with this rhetoric from coaches is that if I just say, like you're carrying a bit too much body fat, you need to drop calories, and you're like, well, no shit, but I know that. How am I doing that? It's like going, you want to build some muscle? Progressive overload. Great. Give me a strategy that means something to me. It's like me going to an accountant and they go, got to pay less tax. I'm like, well, yeah, I've come to you to show me how to do that. And the second problem with this is that people, when they look at, and this is the biggest thing these days, right? I've seen people demonizing egg yolks. I've seen people demonizing olive oil. I've seen people demonizing nuts. I've seen people demonizing healthy foods because they're calorie dense. And like, while they are calorie dense, and that is an expectation you have to have, you can't just drizzle a whole bottle of olive oil in every meal and expect to lose weight. We've got to this point now where banking calories, the sake of just fitting in a Krispy Kreme, because in their mind, it doesn't matter, it's all just calories. We're looking at someone's total daily energy expenditure. For people listening to this that aren't coaches, that is sort of like the total amount of calories you burn in a day. Now, 60 to 70% of that is called our BMR, right? And we're going to come back to that. Then we've got a little bit of this, which is like 20%, which is called NEAT. And when you'll hear a lot of coaches talk about this as steps. So this is what it's not steps. It's non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's the amount I twitch. It's the amount I blink. It's the speed of my voice. It's this sort of stuff. And because I'm never going to go, Julian, your goal this week is to fidget 20% more. That's a silly target. So what in turn, we're going to go, well, we know that as you diet, you're going to start moving and fidgeting less. So if I give you 2,000 more steps, that offsets this natural decline in your body to try and preserve energy. We've got thermic effects of food, which is the amount of calories we expend eating our food, right? And if we go into a deficit, that's going to be less. We're going to expend less calories because we're eating less food, so we're less calories digesting food. Self-explanatory. Eating a bit more protein can offset that a little bit. And then we've got exercise, which is a really small piece of the puzzle. But I'm going to come back and double back to this thing called BMR, which everyone just refers to as coma calories. It's just the amount of calories you have for when you're lying in bed to do nothing. I'm like, yes, but it does not mean that that is a factor that's always static. If you have poor gut health, you are not absorbing and utilizing nutrients well. You're not getting the most from the calories you have, right? You're more likely to crave food. You're more likely to eat more. You also, the conversion of T4, the inactive form of thyroid, into the active form of thyroid T3, part of that happens in the gut. So if your gut's not healthy, this BMR just creeps down a little bit. If your liver isn't healthy, maybe because of a lot of inflammation, a lot of toxins in your environment, that's about 15 to 20% of your metabolic rate. That BMR goes down a little bit more. And we can start stacking these things up of people now, maybe they can't get carbohydrates into the cell. Maybe they're insulin resistant, or maybe they're leptin resistant. So their body thinks they're really lean when they're actually really, really fat. So the body starts shutting down thyroid a little bit more. So this BMR, which has the potential to be 60, 70% of your calories, is now just... And we're not thinking this because it's just what we put in our mouth and what you move. Well, in reality, if we start looking at our clients as like, well, I can get you, yes, we need to make sure that you're managing your calories to lose weight. But in this, we need to focus on like good nutrient quality, minimally processed food, try and get people drinking more water, addressing the balance with omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. If we can get people healthy, this BMR increases, people expend more calories, fat loss becomes easier. And this is the thing that I think a lot of coaches have lost because no one's investing in their education anymore. They're just investing in business coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Went on off.
I can't argue with that, man. It makes a lot of sense what you're talking about. Yeah, and maybe you don't need a business coach right now. Maybe you need just to invest in your knowledge and just get better at your job.
Are you a fan of Alex Hormozi?
Yeah, I haven't listened to a lot of Huberman and Hormozi and stuff. Just bits and pieces here and there on social media.
Because everyone's a fan of Alex Hormozi now, right? And everyone's talking about it's the business stuff. And I see people that are huge fans of Alex Hormozi but don't take his biggest piece of advice. Alex Hormozi always says that early on in his career, before you invest in like the S&P 500, you invest in the SME 500. And every bit of money you make should be invested into education, mentoring, courses to make you better at what you do. And then Alex talks about this all the time. And I see coaches who literally like have posted today about Alex Hormozi's podcast or YouTube in the top of their Spotify playlist. And I'm there going, what's the saying? I've had a DM with that conversation with that coach and go, hey, when was the last course you invested in? Oh, I invested in this Canva course. Oh, okay. And before that, this video editing course. And before that, I went to this fitness summit. Okay, who was speaking at this fitness summit? Stephen Bartlett. Okay, and who else was there? Ali Abdal. Oh, okay, cool. So when was the last course you actually did about being a better coach? Nothing. Nothing. And we see this all the time now. If you want to know the trend of the fitness industry, look at fitness events. With the exception of the Irish Strength Institute, which I really want to go to, and Swiss in America, so many fitness events now are business people. No offense to Bartlett or Ali Abdal, and Ali Abdal was a doctor, so he does know a little bit more, but I'm guessing he's not talking about medical science. He's talking about YouTube. And Bartlett's talking about podcasting and business. All really good skills. I'm a big fan of, in particularly Ali, but both of them. But it's not a fitness event anymore. And maybe I'm a bit stubborn old man for this, and maybe I should be learning more business stuff, and maybe I could be making loads more money if I dropped my ego in this. But I was like, I think if I want to learn business, I should go to a business event. And if I want to learn fitness, I go to a fitness event. I remember when I used to go to Body Power. I don't know if you've ever been to Body Power. It's in a big, massive fitness expo in Birmingham. And it used to be like exercise scientists and bodybuilders. And there was like Phil Leary was there, and Mark Coles, before he became a business coach, was there. And they were all talking about nutrition and psychology and exercise mechanics and training and strength. And now it's lead gen. I'm like, what's happened to this industry? And that like, I know I've gone on a big rant again, and I know we've come full circle in that respect. But like, I think if I have a mission, it's making the fitness industry again. Yeah. And because I generally believe us as coaches have a bigger impact on people's health and the obesity epidemic. Like, did you know 1 in 3 people have metabolic syndrome? So if you don't know what metabolic syndrome is, listen to this. Metabolic syndrome is a number of characteristics or symptoms that doctors use to say if someone's on the path towards a disease. So there's a bunch of things like high blood pressure, high triglycerides, high HDL, high waist circumference. There's a bunch of these, right? High resting heart rate. You can probably start to think of how many people you know in your life that have 3 or more of these. 3 or more of these symptoms means you are diagnosed with metabolic syndrome. 1 in 3 people in the Western world. That is mental. And we can say, well, that's the doctor's responsibility. And maybe it is, but when was the last time you saw your doctor? I would probably say it's probably years ago, right? And when was the last time you saw a doctor? It's because something was wrong. You didn't like the shape of this thing on your toe, or you had a bit of a cough that didn't go. You didn't go to go, hey, doc, I just want to do my 3-month check-in and see if I'm healthy. You go when it's too late. So as coaches, we are people that get into our clients' lives, and we have conversations with them on a daily or every other day basis. And we are the people that can get through to them and help them make real lifestyle change. And we could reverse a lot of the health issues that we're seeing, the rise in autoimmune conditions that are happening, the fact that over 50% of people in the Western world have 7 or more nutrient deficiencies. Like, this is stuff that we, as people that can talk to people on a regular basis and actually get them to adhere, because we have a chance to keep reminding people, we can have the biggest impact on public health. And yet people are more worried about kind of like not scamming people. But I would say if you're looking at lead gen strategies without knowing how to get a result, it is scamming people into giving them money and their bank balance more than they are thinking of the incredible impact they have. And if I can help, I spent most of my career up to this point helping clients, right? So start off with in-person clients. You can help maybe 15 clients at a time, maybe. Then you take on online clients. You can maybe help 50, 60 clients at a time. But now if I can help 100 coaches, all with 50 clients, look at the amount of people that lose weight, get healthier, feel better, solve chronic conditions that I can help with. And it doesn't mean that coaches need to be qualified to deal with all these things. You could not be qualified to deal with a diabetic person and help them make better choices that help with their diabetes. You're not diagnosing anything. And if you want to work with someone's doctor, that's awesome. But like, we just have such a power, and I think people are wasting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. That's what I kind of said too on my story. Like, if someone writes like the world's top coach or expert or something in their bio, like maybe they're not an expert. Like people who just focus on the numbers, like not on the results and the actual like health implications and the physique progress of their clients, but they focus more on numbers and just treating people as numbers instead of people, and on the business side of things, and not as much on the health and fitness side of things. So yeah,
and like I'm happy. I'm not arrogant enough. Like obviously, my job is help coaches understand science and nerd shit, right? But I'm like, there are plenty of coaches out there for everybody, right? But like, if there's the places like me, SMU, people like Metabolic Mental University, Vince Pitstick, who's really good at stuff, Jake Carter from the Institute of Health, Jordan Shallow from Prescript, Paul Standel and the PT Project guys. There's a group of like J3 University. There's a lot of education providers out there that are starting to offer real mentorship for coaches to be better. I just want more coaches to kind of like take these guys up in it. And it doesn't have to be me. This isn't like, oh, Simon, you're just selling me on your, but no, like go to some of these other guys if you prefer them to me. If you think I'm a prick, then that's fine. That's your prerogative. But like, if it's a coach listening to this, I just want you to invest in your skills with whoever you want to go with. Because I tell you what, I've had some business mentors and I've made some money from them, but there is nothing that's made me more money, nothing, than investing in my skills. And the hard sell is that if you sign up to a business mentor, he can go, well, if we try these things, I could get you $5,000 months in 60 days. I can't do that. But when you're in 10 years time and you've done this and you've done other courses and you just do this, you'll look back and go, all of those courses are the reason why I can charge what I charge. Right? Like, I'm not a cheap service. I'm by far not the most expensive education resource for coaches, but I'm not cheap. Why? Because like I've invested so much in my education. It always comes back tenfold. You never regret investing in your skills, ever.
Nice. I think that's a nice ending, man, to the talk. And that's what I said. Like when people just have a good jam and have a lot of knowledge, it just flows. It just flows. It's good.
Hopefully it's what you guys want, man. Hopefully your audience are going to take value from this. And like generally, like I said at the start of this, I'm not a business coach. And I said at the start of this that I'm not someone that's a big aggressive businessman. So if anyone listening to this, whether you're a coach, which is obviously what I deal with, but even if you're just a potential client that wants to lose some body fat, just wants to have a chat about it, like my Instagram DMs are open. I do them. It's not a VA from the Philippines. Reach out and I'll see what I can do to help.
Mm-hmm. I'll put your Instagram handle in the on the video. It's Simon Kingsley, right? Is your last name Dutton? But it was the Kingsley
Dutton.
thing.
So at Kingsley Dutton, yeah. So Kingsley is my middle name.
Oh.
So a lot of people call me Kingsley, but my name is Simon. But it's because if you search Simon Dutton on Instagram, there's a bunch of them. But Kingsley Dutton is easier to find. So if you put Kingsley Dutton on Instagram or Simon Kingsley Dutton on Facebook, you will find me. You won't find anyone else, which makes things a little bit easier. And then Simon Kingsley Dutton on YouTube, which is where I have my podcast, which is absolutely my pride and joy, which is a mixture of fitness stuff, conspiracy theories, aliens, pro wrestling, James Bond, and rugby. It's like it's just finding people that I like to chat about different stuff. But that's my thing on YouTube. But yeah, that's me.
Nice. Yeah, guys, check out Simon's Instagram page. Maybe it doesn't have
300K
followers, but I mean, you can hear what he's talking about and see his content. And sometimes it's not about the numbers; it's about the person and the quality and their knowledge and how much they've learned over the years.
Thank you. And if you have 300,000 people watching this, please give me a follow and get me up to 300,000. That'd be really appreciated.
Let's do it. If you don't follow Simon, like, don't listen to my podcast, goddammit.
No, don't do that. We want you to have listeners. I want everyone to grow. We want your podcast to be huge and my Instagram to be huge. That's and my podcast.
Yeah,
right, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for the invite. Really appreciate it.
been a pleasure, Simon. It was great. Hope you guys got something out of it, and hope you'll keep listening to the podcast and check out Simon's stuff. Peace. Be real.
Yes.